Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Cathedra webinar. We are coming to you live on April 10th, 2025. For anybody who doesn't know, our Cathedra webinars get their name from the Creek word for learning. And today you're going to be learning about housing advocacy and influencing change from your instructor, Shelley Tucciarelli, who is Executive Director of Visionary Ventures Not-for-Profit and owner of Turtle Clan Development Services. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're so thrilled that you could join us for today's webinar. If you could follow along while I read the disclaimer aloud, please. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law pictured here, so just a friendly reminder that the webinar materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Know that when you log on to the learning platform, you can access today's presentation slides, as well as the webinar recording and any of the other webinars that we've done since we moved to the new website. There is a link to today's presentation slides in the chat for you as well. But if you decide you want to share it with a colleague or a friend in the future, this is where you can direct them to download all the resources. Moving forward, now that you've registered for our learning platform, you won't have to re-register in the future. If you wish to attend a webinar that you see advertised, you'll simply log in during the webinar time, and then you will click on the green banner that you see at the top of the screen. If you don't see a green banner with the webinar title saying live webinar, chances are you're maybe logging in a little early. We do ask that when you join, you use listen-only capabilities. It just helps us to cut down on the audio feedback with our instructor. And if you find that once you've joined and you notice maybe the audio is not coming out of the right device, maybe you want it coming out of your headphones, maybe you have speakers attached to your computer, if it's just not coming out of the right place, you'll come down to the bottom of your screen. You'll click on this little telephone icon, and that's going to bring up a list of your speaker as well as your microphone devices. So you can just click on the right one, and if you have any issues, just let me know in the chat and I'll try to help you through. We do have different ways for you to interact during today's webinar. We're primarily going to focus on using the public chat. If you don't already have it expanded, you can just click on public chat over there on that left-hand menu, and it'll open it up for you. If you want to ask a question, make a comment, if you have a tech support issue you need my help getting through, you'll just come and click on this box that says send message to public chat. And once you type what you want to say, hit enter, or you can click on this little paper airplane button, and that'll send it in where everyone can see it. We also have the shared notes section that's right below that public chat. In the shared notes, you'll find a whole list of helpful links for you. But again, I have put the link to today's presentation slides into the chat for you already. If you've joined and you do have your mic enabled, not a problem at all. We just ask that you mute during the presentation. Again, we just want to cut down on audio feedback. And if you've asked a question or made a comment in the chat and you feel like we missed you, feel free to go ahead and use that little hand raise feature that's all the way to the bottom right of your screen. We do want you guys to interact during today's webinar, and we'd love to know who is involved today. So if you don't mind just taking a moment to introduce yourselves. You can let us know what your name is, where you're tuning in from. It's fun to see where everybody lives, your work or your role in Indian country that brought you to today's webinar, and then your tribal affiliation if you have one. While you guys are getting the chat box going, I do have one final note for you. That menu that you see all the way to the left-hand side of your screen, it's a red panel. Try not to click on that during the webinar. Just know that whatever you've clicked on in the menu, it's going to pull you out of the webinar and it'll take you to that. If it does happen, not a big deal. You can just click on the green banner once again to come back into the webinar. But I do just want to give you a heads up that if you click on that, it's going to pull you out. All right, folks, while you're introducing yourselves in the chat, and again, we're so happy to have you today, it is with great pleasure that I introduce your webinar instructor, Shelley Tucciarelli. And Shelley, I am giving you presenter capabilities right now. I'm going to hand it off to you.
Hello, everyone. Shikoli. Let's start out with a prayer. I want to thank the Creator for bringing us together today. Everyone in this training and all executive directors, board members, and staff of our tribal housing programs are our true heroes. They are doing the hard work to keep our tribal members in safe housing. We thank them for all the good work they do. Please help us work together to keep our community strong. Let's not dwell on the negative, but highlight our successes. In Jesus' name, amen. One second. Sorry, everyone. I'm having some remodeling done, but it's supposed to stop at 1 o'clock today. So I'm hoping we won't have any interruptions. I would like to thank Georgette and her amazing staff at the Native Learning Center for providing these training opportunities for Indian country, and also for providing me the opportunity to be the instructor. Let me start out by introducing myself. I'm Shelley Tuzzarelli, and I'm a proud member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. My reservation is near Green Bay. I've been in affordable housing for over 30 years, so it truly is a passion of mine. It's hard work, so you really have to have a passion for it in order to continue doing this for as long as I have. I am the owner and CFO of the Turtle Clan Development Services. It's a Native American women-owned small business that I started in 2013. The mission of my company is through training and technical assistance like this training to help tribal members and leaders to increase the quality and quantity of affordable housing and to develop or expand economic development in their communities in Indian country nationwide. I am also the co-founder of and executive director of Visionary Ventures NFP Corporation. Our nonprofit is a Native American nonprofit 501c3 with an over 51% Native American board of directors. Our mission is to work with community leaders and members to advocate and promote affordable housing, economic development, and services to the Native American communities. In providing these opportunities, it helps to bring stability and hope to individuals and families. Previous to starting my own company, I worked for over 20 years with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. They are the state housing finance agency that provides and finances affordable housing for the entire state of Illinois. I worked in the low-income housing tax credit department and actually managed the program for several years. It is always great to do training with Indian housing authorities. These positions of the executive director and their amazing staff are such important positions. They help to make sure that our tribal members are getting into decent, safe, quality housing, which we all know helps to stabilize families. These jobs can sometimes be thankless positions. I want to take the time now to thank you for all of the great job that you're doing. After living through COVID, when we all had to quarantine at home, we all realize how important it is to have a stable home environment. It is great to hear about all the new housing developments going up in Indian country. We are actually having our first low-income housing tax credit project on my reservation in Oneida, and we're very excited. It's a combination of it's townhomes, and every time I go up there, I just drive through, take pictures, and I'm just so excited to have that affordable housing coming to our reservation. We all know that we are in a housing crisis and that there is such a housing shortage in Indian country. Also in urban areas with large Native American population, we have to continue to advocate for affordable housing. I just want to say that you are all making a huge impact on families when you help them get into housing. We have to keep working on developing additional housing programs for our tribal members on and off the reservation. I'm going to stop my video because I don't want any interruptions. Again, here's information about me, but we just went over that. And next slide, I want to talk about the course description. The United States has a trust responsibility to Native American tribes and specifically to the people. This trust responsibility is based on sacred treaties with Indian tribes, federal statutes, court decisions, executive agreements, and through the course of other transactions and federal policy from the early 1800s. In order to understand where we are today in their Indian housing, we need to understand what course of actions that took place to get us here. Native Americans in tribal areas and in urban areas have some of the worst housing needs in the United States. There are high rates of poverty, many have low incomes, housing that is overcrowded, and there's a lack of plumbing and heat. We also have many unique development issues because of the location of many of our reservations and when trying to develop in urban areas off reservation. We understand the need for safe, decent homes. There's a need for more federal investments in affordable housing on tribal lands and for tribal members living in urban areas. Let me back up. There is a need for more federal investment in affordable housing. One second. Sorry about that. The resources have been underfunded for decades, especially in rural and remote areas. Recent changes to federal native housing programs have led to an even greater reduction in resources for communities most in need. And we all know that we're still trying to determine how the new political agenda will affect our already underfunded housing programs. After this webinar, you will understand a little history of Indian housing, what housing advocacy is, and what organizations are involved. Continued advocacy to reauthorize the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act, also referred to as NAHASDA. We will also discuss how and why we want to influence change. As Brooke mentioned, the PowerPoint presentation is available, and please use the chat room feature for any questions that you may have as we go through the presentation. Please ask a question at any time. We'll be monitoring the chat box for questions and can answer them as we go or at the end. We all know that our country is in an affordable housing crisis. Well, we have been in a housing crisis in Indian country for a long time. There is such a need for all types of housing, multifamily, elder, veterans, supportive, and employer-assisted housing. We are also in need of home ownership opportunities in Indian country and in urban areas. As I mentioned, the United States has a trust responsibility to Native American tribes and to our people. This trust responsibility extends to the area of healthcare, education, natural resources, public safety, and of course, housing. Being in affordable housing industry for as long as I have been, I've seen how housing is so important for the stability of our tribal families. To understand where we are today, we have to understand the course of actions that took place to get us to this point. Your current housing program is governed by the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act of 1996. We refer to this program as NAHASDA. Prior to NAHASDA, Indian housing was governed by the 1937 Housing Act. After the Great Depression, federal programs were created in an effort to help America's poorest citizens. The United States Housing Act of 1937, one of the many post-Depression New Deal programs, promised to provide safe and sanitary dwellings for America's poor. The 1937 Housing Act authorized local governments to organize public housing agencies and provided loan funds to these agencies for low-income housing projects. It also permitted the federal government to guarantee these loans and to make yearly payments. Although the 1937 Act provided for the creation of public housing programs, Indian housing programs did not begin until the mid-1960s. In order to apply for funding, tribes were required to establish an Indian housing authority. This was accomplished by the Tribal Council passing a housing ordinance. Indian housing authorities were governed by a board of commissioners whose members were elected or appointed by the tribe. An executive director is hired by the board of commissioners and the tribal council to run the day-to-day operations of the housing authority. In 1949, Congress passed another housing bill that updated the 37 Act and addressed the post-World War II housing shortage. The bill renewed the federal commitment to provide safe and sanitary homes to the poor and expanded it to include a decent home and suitable living environment for all American families. Unfortunately, all American families did not include families in Indian country. The housing needs in Indian country were not included in the 1937 Housing Act. This was probably due to the federal government termination policy towards Indian tribes in the late 1940s and 1950s. Termination was a process designed to dissolve the federal government to government relation with tribes and assimilate Indian people into mainstream America. Tribes lacked the experience and influence in government and policies to insert their housing rights under existing federal and state law during this time. Most tribes also lacked the financial capability of being able to finance their own housing programs. This is the time that a lot of Native Americans moved to the urban areas with a promise of jobs, housing, and services. When they got there, of course, there were some jobs, but no housing or services. That's why the American Indian Center in Chicago and other urban Native American centers were created. Many went back to reservations, but many stayed in the urban areas. In 1960, John F. Kennedy visited the Pine Ridge Reservation during his campaign for president of the United States. After seeing the horrible housing conditions, he vowed to bring federal assistance to Native Americans if he was elected. In 1961, after being elected, President Kennedy convened his cabinet and asked how they could provide federal assistance to tribes for housing. It was not until 1961 that Indian tribes became eligible for housing assistance under federal programs assistance that the rest of the United States had access to for the last 25 years. There were some problems that arose from the beginning of these first programs that still plague tribal housing programs and their federal funding agencies today. The Public Housing Authority modeled their program after its urban multifamily prototype. Unfortunately, this approach had a long list of unforeseen consequences for Indian housing. Some of these consequences were that there was an Indian preference for single-family housing instead of the multifamily housing prototype. There were complications that arose because of the trust status on Indian lands. Also, not knowing or considering the cultural aspects of working in Indian country. Many of the Indian housing authorities lacked training and professional expertise. The rural isolation and location of most reservations. At this time, and even today, most banks were very reluctant to lend money on trust lands. There was inefficient federal interagency coordination. One department didn't know what the other department was doing. And another one was the high cost and the significant amount of time that it took to develop projects in Indian country. These problems persisted for many years despite many efforts to address them. Many of these issues still remain today in different ways and are directly affecting the quality of the tribe's housing programs. The promise of Indian housing programs established in the 1960s was under increasing pressure as the 1970s began. Federal programs administered by HUD were more fitted to an urban environment, which made the development of effective housing programs even more difficult in Indian country. There was considerable national interest in addressing the recognized housing need. However, there was the logistical challenges of developing housing in Indian country and in urban areas. NAHASDA, the Native American Assistance and Self-Determination Act, was enacted in 1996. It changed everything. One change brought about by NAHASDA is that funding is allocated to tribes rather than housing authorities. Since funding is allocated to tribes, they had the option of administering the program themselves or naming a tribally designated housing entity to be the recipient of the grant and to administer the program. The tribally designated housing entity is designated by a resolution of the tribe or the tribe's governing body. The tribally designated housing entities are most often Indian housing authorities that were operating programs prior to the enactment of NAHASDA. The housing authority has the executive director to run the day-to-day operations for the programs, and the oversight body of the housing authority, that is the tribally designated entity, is still the Board of Commissioners. An extraordinary amount of thought and work went into the passage of NAHASDA. Tribes, Indian housing authorities, and the National American Indian Housing Council were closely involved with representatives from congressional and administrative staff to craft legislation that would address the long neglected housing needs in tribal communities. NAHASDA is a definite departure from the top-down process of previous Indian housing rules and regulations. NAHASDA recognizes the right of Indian self-determination and tribal self-governance by making assistance available directly to the Indian tribes or their tribally designated housing entity. Self-determination was and continues to be the hallmark of NAHASDA. Some tribes have now chosen to abolish their housing authorities and operate housing as a tribal housing department. However, this is not always possible in areas where housing authorities were established under state law. When housing is administered by the tribe, the oversight body may be the tribal council, the business committee, a housing committee, or some other group that the tribe may choose. When we talk about housing advocacy, we are talking about certain policies, programs, and actions that help to ensure safe, affordable housing for everyone, especially for those that may be experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. What are the key aspects of housing advocacy? The first one is advocating for policy changes, then bringing awareness to specific housing issues, making sure that we are supporting individuals as well as families, prepare for community organizing when necessary, and finally, making sure to work with policymakers to support bills or campaign for certain initiatives. Advocating for policy change. Our tribal communities have become much more sophisticated and educated and know that we must have housing advocates that are working to help influence our local, state, and national policies to improve affordable housing initiatives in our communities. Raising awareness. We need to make the public aware of our issues and our need for affordable housing. There are many challenges that we face in Indian country and in urban areas that makes it more difficult to build affordable housing. We also need to make our tribal communities aware of all the funding that is available, like low-income housing tax credits, rural development grants and loans. These are the funding sources that's being used. Everyone else is using these funds. We need to start using them also. There is also the HUD 184 American Indian Home Ownership Program. We need to make our communities aware of this program to help more of our community members become homeowners and start building wealth. That's how everyone else does it. We need to start doing it in our communities also. Supporting individuals and families. The work that our tribal housing authorities and tribal housing departments do when they provide assistance to our tribal members to help find safe, affordable housing is so important. We really are housing advocates for our tribal members. Community organizing. This is a big part of housing advocacy, is community organizing. This is where you would connect with residents, organize events, and build coalitions to make sure the voices of those affected by housing issues are heard. As we were developing our project in Chicago, our affordable housing for our urban native project, we had several community meetings to inform our Native American community in Chicago about the initial concept of our housing and to gain insight about the importance of certain features that would make our development culturally relevant for our community. We also organized our community members to be present in support of our project at Chicago City Council. We presented our financing about 3 weeks ago, and we had several members come in and a few that testified, and happy to say that we passed the City Council's Finance Committee and full City Council unanimously. So it's so important to make sure that your community is organizing and they're standing behind all of these important issues that we're bringing to the table. We also, for our project, put together a Native American Community Advisory Council to help provide input and guidance on the exterior and interior of our building, the unit types, and the services we will be bringing in for our residents. We still meet monthly and continue to go over all the updates, and it's just been a great process to be able to bring our community members in. And also, we know if we need any advocacy, they're going to be right there. They're going to be the first ones that we call to be part of our initiative that we're moving forward. Next thing we want to talk about is working with our policy makers. Make sure to reach out to elected officials, policymakers, other nonprofit organizations, and certain agencies to help promote specific housing legislation and policies. We recently had our 3rd annual Native American Summit, where we took a busload of our Native American community members to the Capitol in Springfield, Illinois, to lobby for our issues. We had a press conference, and I was able to give an update that our urban housing project had passed city council and that we're moving forward. We're planning to close end of this month, and I'll give a little bit more information about the project at the end of the presentation. Some of the examples of advocacy efforts will include making sure to help support the expansion of affordable housing programs, making sure to oppose certain policies that could lead to displacement or evictions. We need to advocate to increase funding for tribal housing assistance programs on and off the reservation, making sure that fair housing laws are being met, and also build housing that is accessible for everyone, especially for our tribal members with disabilities. Who are our housing advocates? The housing advocates that are important to help with our housing issues are the National American Indian Housing Council, of course, the Native Learning Center, state housing finance agencies, and you can check with your state, but for Illinois, we have Housing Action Illinois. And also in Chicago, we have the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative. The National American Indian Housing Council, I first started going to the National American Indian Housing Council meetings after I left working with the state and started my own company. That was over 11 years ago. Then my cousin Pam Silas became the executive director and worked there for several years. I would come to the conferences and help, by volunteering, and then I would also speak. Pam hasn't worked there for over 5 years, but I still volunteer to help. And I attend the meetings. It's such a great networking opportunity to see all of the housing authorities and the tribal council members across the country coming together to solve issues. And, one of the things is if you haven't attended any of these meetings, I really suggest that you do, because they're just great events. I'll talk about that when we go over the events. So, National American Indian Housing Council, their mission is to effectively and efficiently promote and support American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians in their self-determined goals to provide culturally relevant and quality affordable housing for Native people. Some of the services they provide advocacy, training, membership, and events. For advocacy, the National American Indian Housing Council is one of the biggest advocates for Native American housing. They promote housing opportunities along with increased funding for housing and community development programs in Indian country. NAHC has been advocating for the reinstatement of NAHASDA. So we, the way NAHC says is that, it's more than just a roof. We're advocating for quality housing in tribal communities. For over 25 years, tribal housing programs have utilized the Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act, NAHASDA, like we had talked to improve housing opportunities throughout the tribal communities. NAHASDA is critical for tribal housing programs to receive funding while providing more control over affordable housing decisions and flexibility to address specific housing needs. Although NAHASDA expired in 2013, Congress still funds its programs each year, reauthorizing we've been advocating for years to reauthorize NAHASDA, because this would provide tribal housing programs with greater certainty to provide services and resources for the next decade. NAIHC has been advocating for Congress to reauthorize NAHASDA. NAIHC also encourages tribal housing directors, board members, and advocates to meet with their respective senators and representatives in Washington, D.C. We need to continue our advocacy and find out where we are in the reauthorization, and we need to just continue to be huge advocates of NAHASDA. Also, National American Indian Housing Council helped to establish Ameren Insurance. Once we were allowed to start building and had our housing programs and building our community buildings, no one would insure our properties. So Ameren was established through the help of NAIHC, and Ameren is the only 100% tribally owned insurance carrier, and they're based in New Mexico. And it helps to keep our properties insured in Indian country. So again, advocating to get our own insurance so that we can have insurance on our properties in Indian country was so important. Training. NAIHC works with HUD Office of Native American Programs to offer trainings in various areas of Native housing development and management. Please take a look at their website for their training opportunities. Memberships includes tribal council members and Indian Housing Authority staff from around the country. They offer technical assistance on site on numerous topics to provide assistance to our tribal housing professionals. Events. NAIHC has 3 large events every year. They have their legislative conference that is usually in February, and that is always in Washington, D.C., which makes sense. Their annual convention and trade show is usually in May or June in every year. This year it's in LA, unfortunately, LA, California. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to that one this year. Last year, they had their 50th year celebration, and it was at the Hard Rock Casino and Conference Center in Hollywood, Florida. So I was there. It was a great event. They also have their legal symposium, and it's usually in December in Las Vegas. It can be at different venues, so you have to check the website to see where they're going to be this year. It's also usually during the rodeo. I've been trying every year to get to the rodeo, so this year I'm going to try and make it over there. It's a really exciting event, and last year they did have some videos up, and we were able to see some of the rodeo from the conference center. But you see a bunch of cowboys and Indians running around. It's really a sight to see. And it's always a great event. So if your housing authority or your tribal council members aren't a member, I would suggest you consider becoming a member and attending some of these events. It is so great to meet with tribal community members from across the country to hear all of the great projects and programs that they're doing in Indian country. And also, they have such good sessions. So a lot of times going to some of these sessions, you can see, what are some of the best practices, what has gone wrong in some of the development, and, some things that you could use to avoid as you're doing development. And, just out there advocating for housing, affordable housing in Indian country is just so important. The next, of course, the Native Learning Center is the other huge advocate for Native American housing. I've been working with the Native Learning Center for over 10 years. The executive director, Georgette Palmer, has done an amazing job running this organization. It has been wonderful working with her and her amazing staff. The primary goal of Native Learning Center is to support the objectives of NAHASDA. Those objectives include offering courses to help to develop, maintain, and operate safe and healthy affordable housing, work with organizations and banks to provide better access to private mortgages for our tribal members in Indian country, promoting self-sufficiency, continued efforts to further economic and community development for our tribal communities, promotes development of private capital markets in Indian country. We now have our own banks and community development financial institutes to help us continue to grow our wealth. So important. We actually have Bay Bank on our reservation up in Green Bay, up in Oneida. And we actually have a total of 3 banks, 2 on our reservation and 1 up in Menominee. It's so important to have that access to funds. And also, a lot of times the banks are working with the HUD 184. So it's important that we start doing our own financing of our projects in Indian country. Oh, I just went over all this, but you'll have it on the slide. Next, we want to talk about state housing finance agencies. Each state has its own state housing finance agency. In Illinois, we have the Illinois Housing Development Authority, also known as IDA. I worked at IDA for over 20 years, helping to finance the creation and preservation of affordable housing for the entire state. I actually managed the program, managed the low-income housing tax credit program for several years. IDA staff works with all the team members that develop affordable housing and home ownership programs. I just want to say that it's so important, the work that these state housing finance agencies do in order to, they're the ones that have a lot of different funding sources. So let me switch to the next one here. So if you're interested in using low-income housing tax credit programs to develop multifamily housing, or you want to develop single-family homes for your tribal members, first thing you need to do is go to your state housing finance agency and download the qualified allocation plan and review it. The qualified allocation plan is the tool that shows how they're going to allocate the tax credits every year. Sometimes the qualified allocation plan is for 1 year, 2 years, and they amend it as, as things change. A lot of times, they may need more of senior housing. They may need more housing, permanent supportive housing. So they put initiatives into the qualified allocation plan in order to direct those types of housing. It's all about the scoring. You have to score well in order to get your project in in for funding. And I know there's a lot of states that have a lot of tribal communities that would love to do housing in the tribal in Indian country, but we have to start making those first thing you need to do again is to download the qualified allocation plan, and then make a call to your state housing finance agency and start building that relationship. They have different funding sources that can help. A lot of times they have multifamily housing, and they have stuff to help you with home ownership also. So it's really important that you once you take a look at the funding sources that they have, make a meeting, and if you can, go to their office and meet with them directly. They really want to do housing in Indian country, but they don't know how to build that relationship. So if you make that first step and reach out, it's really, really important. I know in Wisconsin, WIDA, that's their acronym, kind of got in trouble a little bit for not doing enough housing in Indian country, because there's quite a few tribal nations in Wisconsin, but they've made that change. And like I said, we got our first allocation of credits about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and construction is almost done. So it is important to start building those relationships. Like I said, you'll want to take a look at your state to see what type of housing advocates you have in your state. The one that we have here in Illinois is Housing Action Illinois. They have been around for 35 years, and their mission is to help end homelessness, increase affordable housing, and expand home ownership opportunities. I am actually going to an event that Housing Action Illinois is having in next week, and it's called Toast to Housing Justice. So it's important to, get involved in these type of activities in order to continue to advocate for our communities. I'm also with the state of Illinois. They're doing a 5-year strategic plan to end homelessness in Chicago. And I'm on the committee to help put this plan together. So it's important that we have some of our Native American community members at the table to make sure that we're being part of the process also. Some of the activities that the Housing Action Illinois does is policy advocacy, capacity building, education, and organizing. The Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative is a network of 16 different Native American organizations and programs that work together to improve the lives of our Native American community members here in Chicago. Visionary Ventures is a member of the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative, and I serve on the executive board. I helped to get our 501(c)(3) status in 2022, and now we're able to retain all of our grant funds. We don't have to give up, 8% to our fiscal agent. It is amazing the work that we can do when we all work together. Our mission is to establish a common mission and vision for our community, develop services for an urban area. We promote understanding and respect for our culture that includes social, economic, and spiritual. We really help to advocate for our community. What is affordable housing? We consider housing affordable if you are not paying more than 30% of your income on housing. Through a report that the University of Illinois completed on our urban Native community, it showed that over 50% of our community members are house burdened. That means they're paying more than 30% of their income towards housing. Affordable housing rents usually range from 30% of the area median income up to 60% of the area median income. These rents and income levels are published annually by HUD. Your local housing authority will have this information. I just wanted to, kind of go, we need to really understand what sources of funds are used in housing and economic development for our community. First one is the low-income housing tax credits. Again, it's a tough program, but it is one of the largest funding sources that is used today to build and fund affordable housing projects throughout the United States. So again, everyone else is using these. We need to start using these also. And a lot of times, again, because it's such a difficult program, bringing in a consultant to help you work on this type of stuff. Baker Tilly is a great one. They do work throughout the United States. There's a few other large consultants that do. Just make sure that you meet with them and you feel comfortable with them. Next one is a lot of states have their own state housing tax credits, home investment partnership programs. This is through HUD. There are state or local housing trust funds. And I think there's also a national trust fund, housing trust fund also now that was, again, advocated for and because there was a need. There's also the Affordable Housing Program, and this is through the Federal Home Loan Bank. It's originally, it was only up to $750,000 that you can get, but they've now gone up to $2 million that you could put into your housing program. So it's a great opportunity. There are also federal and state energy and utility grants. In our state, we have ComEd. So there is a ComEd grant of usually around $200,000 that can go into your development. Rural development, the USDA loan guarantees. I would definitely, they're another one. Rural development is an agency that you should know who your rural development area director is and reach out to them and find out what sources of funding they have, because they've got a lot of great funding resources. The Native American Housing Assistance and Self-Determination Act, again, NAHASDA, that's how we get a lot of our housing done in Indian country. And there's also the Indian Housing Block Grant. That's a competitive process. And again, if you need to get a consultant and help you with that, you'll have my contact. I can, there's a few that I know do a lot of work in Indian country, because the Indian Housing Block Grant, that if you need to do like your health center or a community center, the Indian Housing Block Grants work. One that I did not put on here that's being used a lot more for projects in Indian country is the new market tax credits. I want to show, this is a rendering of our project. It's in the north side of Chicago off of Irving Park Road. And as you can see, the direction of the balconies, you're not going to be overlooking the street. It's actually facing east, so we're going to get the rising sun coming up, which is new beginnings and just an important factor. And also to the east of our building is the Chicago River. So that's what the blue it's like the river flowing through the building, and then we have the north and the south branch. And I don't know if you can see it real well in this picture, but it also flows all the way down, and it's going to go right into the lobby of the building. It has taken over 4 years of advocating for this project, and we will, next month, we're going to be closing, and construction is going to be starting soon after. So we are so excited. We are planning a huge groundbreaking ceremony in early June, and we want as many of our community members to come out and celebrate. We're planning to have dancers and the drums. You know, we have waited over 50 years for this housing, and it is truly history in the making. Some of the aspects that we're going to be putting in this project, Chesapeake is the name of the project, and it's Potawatomi for by the river's edge. And like I mentioned, this is Chicago's first affordable housing for the Native American community. Because there's a lot of sustainability factors that we really, that is required through the city of Chicago, but is also what we want for our building. So we will be following the Chicago Sustainability Development Policy. We're going to be using Energy Star construction and Enterprise Green Communities certification. We also will have to follow the Chicago Energy Transformation Code. And so there's a lot of different aspects that we'll have to adhere to for the city of Chicago. For transportation, our project is within the equitable transit-oriented development zone. That means that there, you know, we're in a great location. We have a bus route on Irving Park Road, and we're in a close proximity to a lot of resources. One of the main reasons that we chose this site was because we're close to the American Indian Center, we're close to the American Indian Health Services of Chicago, and just east on Irving Park Road, we have the St. Kateri Center that provides youth and elder services for our project. Another thing that is mandatory now in the city of Chicago is having a bike room for every unit. And there's 45 units, so we have to have an indoor bike room for access for 45 bikes. And we will also have it will be equipped with like a bike repair station so that if people need to make any repairs. And also there will be 4 electrical vehicle ready parking stations in the parking lot. That's a requirement of the city of Chicago. Again, here's a night vision of the thing. And this one, you can kind of see how the blue of the river will flow right into the lobby. And we're also working with a lot of community members, have some art that they're donating because this project was so expensive. Our budget for our art has dwindled some. So we're going to be reaching out to the American Indian Center. I know they have some art that they might be able to donate or at least lend to us. And we also have, let me see if I have the other. No, let me go back. And if you can see right up on the top floor, we ended up for the 7th floor, we ended up pushing it back because everyone was complaining that the building was too tall. So we just pushed it back and you can't really see it from the street level. But on the 7th floor, we'll be having our community space. And it's going to be a green roof on the south side of the building. And so we've got a lot of great amenities that a lot of affordable housing really doesn't have. A lot of affordable housing doesn't have balconies, but because of we burn our sage and a lot of buildings are non-smoking, 100% non-smoking now. So we thought that was something that we really needed. And then also the community space upstairs. And we also have a room. It's going to be a craft room so that a lot of our community members do beading and they do make regalia. So instead of having it all over the kitchen table, they'll have a space upstairs in order to work. And then they can work with the, being able to meet some of their neighbors. And so it's just going to be a really, really great project. Some of the things I wanted to kind of go over now is advocacy, some of the advocacy that we've done here in Illinois. We've had some main issues with Illinois, and why we have no Native American housing in Illinois is because we do not have, for years, we did not have a federally recognized tribal nation and tribal lands here in Illinois. So we didn't have anyone, no representative, no voice, no seat at the table. But now that we're all working together, we are seeing how we're really becoming very, doing a lot of advocacy in our state. We service between 150 to 175 different tribal nations. And we do have a lot of community members. The census says that we have about 32,000 Native Americans in Chicago and almost about 280,000 throughout Illinois. But we know that there's a lot more because some of our community members still will not complete the census. So we do have a lot of community members that we need to take care of. Again, here are the states that without federally recognized tribes. Thankfully, in Illinois, we've made some changes. And these were a few of the bills that we got passed in 2023. One was a dress code policy that allows culturally appropriate attire at school ceremonies. And I'll tell you about a story about what happened to one of our Native American students next. The other one that we got passed by the governor was remains, that Native American remains need to go back to their tribal communities. And also some of the museums that have stolen items from our communities need to go back to those communities. Other one, House Bill 1633 that was passed, it mandates the teaching of Native American history to our students from kindergarten all the way up to high school. It's important that it's not being taught that we are here and now we're gone. We need to start teaching Native American history here in Illinois. This is what happened to one of our Nimki Curley, one of our students. This is what he had on. He had a beaded cap. He had a feather that his grandfather had given him and a beaded shawl here. And when he was going up to get his diploma, security pulled him out of the line and said, unless he took his cap off and all of everything else, that he would not be able to graduate. So he refused and went up and sat in the stands with his parents. The school had a you can't have a policy that you couldn't have nothing on your cap or anything. But the next day, the superintendent of the school came to his home and gave him his diploma. And from there, Nimki started to advocate, and that's how we were able to get that passed. And it's not only for the Native American community, it's also for anybody that wants to have something that's ceremonial or important to them, that they can have it also on their cap and gown and things. So it wasn't just for our community. We was advocating for everyone. The next one was we advocated for the remains of certain artifacts to go back to their tribal nations. It's so important that we address these issues and make sure, and again, being able to make it into law. This is the first time that we've ever had, that the Native Americans were able to have laws for our community in Illinois. So it's just very impressive to see what we can do when we all work together. Again, they were starting to do this Native American history. And when they first started this, talking about it and doing it, they did not have one Native American on the committee that were talking about it. Once we found out, we made sure we had representatives from our community and some of our educators and some of our professors to be part of this, mandating this for our community. But again, we want to be the ones saying what needs to be done for our community and talking about Native American history. Not everyone, we have to be at the table, and we may have to stand up and let everyone know that that's what we need to do. So it mandates that Native American history is taught from K through 12, Native American history to include sovereignty and self-determination along with focus on urban Indians, includes Native Americans in the study of the Holocaust and genocide, includes a Native American on the State Education Equity Commission. We fought for that. So right now they're in the process of working with the State Board of Education to establish the history working group, and what they're trying to, pull the materials and all the resources that they need with the consultation of the American Indian community. And we're hoping that, I think it's supposed to be the next school year, it's going to be introduced. And so now they're just meeting with some of the schools and the faculty and making sure that they understand what they need to do in order to move forward. So we're very, very happy about this also. Here was in 2022, we started going to Springfield to advocate for our issues. And that was one of the big things that really helped get these laws passed. Brooke, do you want to show the video?
Yes, I will cue that up right now.
Thank you, Brooke. So I just want to say how much it is so important to get out and advocate for our communities. We need to be going to our state capitals and just bringing our issues to light. And if you need a law passed, you start those processes. This is continued. We didn't stop. We had House Bill 4107, which was the land transfer back to the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. And we're also working on elimination of Native American mascots. It's changed a little bit. I've got an amendment that I want to talk about. And then also for state parks, land acknowledgements and history of the original people that were part of the different state parks. The Treaty of Chicago in around 1833 really removed most of the Native Americans from Illinois. However, there was a treaty, the 1929 treaty, reserved some area and some land near Pawpaw Grove and for Illinois and for the Potawatomi. And also Chief Chabonet and his band were part of that. It was like their reservation land here. But in 1949, some of their tribal members were removed to Kansas. So Chief Chabonet went down to Kansas to check on his people to make sure that they settled in and that everything was good. And when he came back, the land was illegally sold by public auction by the government. Since it was an act, there was no act of Congress to for the rights of this. It was illegally done, and so that was 175 years ago. And the Potawatomi have been continuing to fight since then to get their land back. Of course, they had to buy it back, but they are now, the Prairie Band is now the first federally, they were already federally recognized, but not in the state of Illinois. So this is such a huge milestone for us that they were able to reclaim some of their ancestral land. Again, they spent millions to repurchase the land, but you know what? It's now being put into trust. So we now have a voice in Illinois. We have a tribal nation here that can help us to advocate. They have lobbyists and you know, they're doing a lot of great work. So we are just so proud and so happy to have the Potawatomi now have trust lands here in Illinois. And they also were just, I don't know if it's on here or not. One of the other bills is that they were able to, the state governor just recently, there's a Chabonet State Park that has been also turned over to the Potawatomi. So now they're going to be the stewards of that park. And we're so happy and they're so proud to have that land back. And, you know, with everything that's going on in the country today, in some of a lot of state parks aren't being well funded or well maintained. One of the things that we all need to start considering to advocate for is how can other tribal nations take over and be good stewards of other state parks in your state. So that's something that I'd like everyone to consider and start looking into also, because who would be better stewards of the land than our tribal nations? So this may be a great opportunity for us all. One of the other things that I wanted to, let me see, where am I at here? And this is just continuing to advocate in Chicago with the mayor. I'm actually on one of the committees. It's called Cut the Red Tape. It has taken us 5 years to get our project from award to now being closed and constructed. It should not take that long for a project to be affordable housing to be constructed. So I'm on their committee to help. What can we do to stop some of the bureaucracy so that we can move these projects along a lot quicker? And then here's another one. We, over the last 2 years, they actually, during Native American Heritage Month, for the first time, they had a celebration for our community. And so we're just so happy for the things that we're doing and for us to stand up for ourselves. I wanted to kind of go over the other House bill that was about the mascots. It has been amended, and now it's House Bill 1237, and this amends the school code. It provides that school boards shall prohibit a school from using a native name, logo, or mascot. It provides that a school may continue to use the uniforms or other materials bearing a native name, logo, or mascot that were purchased on or before the effective date of the amendment until September 2030. And that's when they're going to be required to get rid of all of the logos and things like that. We did have it originally to 2028, but they requested a couple more years because it can be a financial burden on some schools to give them a little bit longer time in order to save up money to change out all of the equipment and signs like that. Also, this the amendment also includes that there can be an exception for schools that have a clear written connection to a federally recognized tribal nation. And there's going to have to be a resolution that they have signed every 5 years. Or I think every 3 years. I think they wanted to change it to 5, but we said every 3 years they have to have this resolution saying that they still have the support of that tribal nation. So the understanding of the bill is all public schools, K through 12, no school shall use a native name, logo, or mascot. They need to select the name and mascot, a new name and mascot within 3 to 5 years. I can't remember that there was an amendment for new purchases. And this is for the state of Illinois. And one of the things is that we must be focused on the children. All comments must relate to the welfare of the children. We do not engage, address, or compare any professional or college teams. This is only through high school. And it's not about history or tradition or popularity concepts. This is all about addressing the issue for our children. There's now that it's been like over 20 years where we've had research done, and some of the research shows that it undermines the educational experience of members of all communities, especially those who have had little or no contact with Indigenous people. It establishes an unwelcome and oftentimes hostile learning environment for American Indian students that affirms negative images, stereotypes that are promoted in mainstream society. It undermines the ability of American Indian nations to portray accurate and respectful images of their culture, spirituality, and traditions. It presents stereotypical images of American Indians. It's a form of discrimination against American Indian nations that can lead to negative relations between other groups. This is a statement from a former American Psychological Association president, Ronald F. Levant. The use of American Indian mascots as symbols in schools and university athletic programs is particularly troubling because schools are places of learning. These mascots are teaching stereotypical misleading, and too often insulting images of American Indians. These negative lessons are not just affecting American Indian students, they are sending the wrong message to all students. So we're just so happy that we were able to get this. Representative West is the one that introduced this bill. And it actually, when he introduced this, it started about 3 years ago, where we first started it. He actually got some death threats when he first introduced it, but it didn't stop him. He reached out to our community, and Andrew Johnson from the video, he's been working so closely with him. And we just heard today that the bill passed the House and it's moving to the Senate. So we are extremely happy. I just got an email about that before I started the presentation. So we are so, so excited about that. Let me just, as a final note, I just want to say that as tribal housing executive directors, our board of commissioners, and our housing staff, your hard work and efforts create safe and prosperous communities for Native families. We have to continue to advocate for affordable housing for our tribal communities in Indian country and in urban areas. We need to influence change by having a voice. We need more community members to sit on committees and boards and attend meetings to help make positive changes for their communities. Like I had mentioned earlier, you guys are our real heroes. You are out there every day working so hard and making a difference. Some days it can feel like a thankless job, but you are appreciated more than you know. And I know you don't hear that enough, but when your tribal members have a decent, safe place to live and you're making a difference in their lives, well, that's why you do it. We're always thinking about the next project or that next program that will continue to help make a difference. Yes. That's why we do it. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be in this webinar. I really enjoyed this training, and please use this information to continue to train your staff and new board members. I just want to take a break now to see if we have any questions. If anyone wants to unmute and ask any questions, we want to make sure that we have ample time to address any questions. Do we have any in the, let's see. Yes, you can also ask your questions in the chat if you prefer to do it that way. And please, please fill out the webinar feedback surveys. They're very important so that we can continue to make sure that we have great training for our community members moving forward. And if you have any suggestions, please put those on the form. Well, if we don't have any questions, let me give you, here's my contact information. Oh, I forgot to put my Visionary Ventures email because that's the one I use most. Or feel free to call me. I'm available. So just please reach out to me. And if you're planning any housing in your community, I'd love to, give you some information. I think I'm going to be doing a couple of webinars next year. One of the really important things whenever you're thinking about doing housing in your community is to put your a great team together. You have to make sure you have a team together that is experienced in doing low-income housing tax credits. And again, make sure that you put you have your executive director and board member training packets so that you have all the information that your housing directors need and your new board members need. And also, if there's some training, they can always listen to some of these webinars. I always suggest to anyone that when I'm out there training is to have a lunch and learn. There's so many webinars to choose from, and once a month, have a lunch and learn. Have your staff get together and choose one of these webinars to show to them. And also, I think there's also opportunities where the Native Learning Center can come out and actually do some training in person. So if that's something you're interested in, also please make sure you reach out to Brooke and her staff. So I just want to say, thank you again for attending this session, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Yoko, everyone, be well and treat one another well, and hope to see you at another webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this incredible presentation, Shelley. Your passion and your love for your people are so evident as you go through this information. Everybody, I encourage you to show her some love in the feedback survey. Helps us at the Native Learning Center know what's working well, what we can improve upon, and we do share that feedback with our instructors. So feel free to put your joy and appreciation into writing in this survey. That is in the chat for you right now. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. This one's going to be on money management for tribal members. This will be presented by Shantae Moore, who's a certified financial educator with Native American Financial Literacy Services. That is going to be next week on Tuesday. Our webinar times are always the same, so it's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, and 10 a.m. Alaska. You'll be able to access today's recording as well as our others that go back about 2 years. The home for them has moved now to our YouTube channel. We have a whole playlist called the Catheta Webinars Archive. So feel free to go through that. It's a really excellent resource. Share with your friends, share with your colleagues. And we hope you can check out our upcoming training events. We post about them to our various social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. If you are a podcast listener, we have an in-house produced podcast, the Hopathanga Native American podcast. You can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts. Or if you're like me and you love to watch the videos of people with their special guests, you can catch those on our YouTube channel as well. There's a Hopathanga Native American podcast playlist also. But that's all we have for you today, folks. I'm going to go ahead and leave the webinar room open so that you guys have access to the link in the chat. But I am going to go ahead and turn off the recording. And we hope to connect with you again really soon. And we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you so much.